Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for Politically Incorrect Knitters. I'm Deplorable Knitter, and I am joined, as always, by the lovely Ann Pinkova. And we are going to do a little bit of politics, do a little bit of knitting. But first, what you got on your needles, Ann?
Ooh. So I've been incredibly boring this week, and oh, has it been a week? So nothing too taxing. I started a pair of blue socks. Woohoo! They're Kay Jones's umbrella socks, and I modified them slightly so they're dark blue, and you can't see much. But anyways, they're ribbed slightly on the top, so they're pretty simple, pretty nice. It is you and I yarn. It's lovely. It's squishy. It's sock yarn. I don't have to think very much. And otherwise, I've started crocheting, which is horrible. That proves right there how bad things are. If I've started crocheting, that is like the whole. So
Is it really that bad to be crocheting, Ann? For real?
I
It's a
have.
fabulous thing.
It's a fabulous thing. I have so many things to knit. For me to just temporarily give up and start crocheting, that's an issue.
I understand completely.
Not anything against the entire craft of crochet. Um, but here we go. And of course, Bone gave me that lovely crochet hook set. So it is a blanket, can't you tell?
It's a blanket?
Oh yes. One day when it grows up. And
It will grow up to be one someday. Okay,
well,
cool.
and to go from, I know how to do like a single crochet and that's pretty much it. And this is like some granny square try something something. And I think it's called the granny square blanket or something. It's an Attic 24 pattern. Anyways, so it's quite long. It's probably only twin size or longer, but there's a lot of it here. It's just slow going. But that's okay.
See, that's funny. I crochet when I want to get something done quickly. Like
Ah,
I hate knitting blankets and things. As anytime one of my friends has a baby, I do not knit that thing. I will always crochet it because it is just way faster for me. Like I don't have the attention span to knit a blanket. I maybe next week I'll get out my husband's blanket that's been in works for a couple of years and show it to you guys.
right,
You can see how long it's taken me to get that far.
right. Well, and also part of it is so I have all of these I think it's Lion Brands, Mandela, whatever. So
Hmm.
it's pre-striped. And it's these,
Yeah.
really lovely, homey kind of Mrs. Weasley colors. So I'm like, I'm just gonna make a big old blanket, and that is how it's gonna be right now.
No, that's cool.
Well, which I probably won't finish it for years, but you know, you don't have to.
You know, I like to have a project that's just kind of there. And like when I'm in between or I'm not super inspired, you can pick it up and you can knit a few rows or crochet a few rows and then do something else. So, it's always good to have something on hand.
Yeah, and normally when I do a blanket, it is something very plain knit and fast, like no particular pattern. And I'm like, oh, I'm probably going to get tired of these tri stitches eventually, because it's just this over and over and over again. But on the other hand, crochet is something so new to me that it like requires a certain amount of focus. So I'm like, oh, this is actually nice. This is this is
Yeah,
good.
that's cool.
Like I have to like
Very
teach
cool.
my brain to wrap around it. So that's good.
Yeah.
It's not just knitting where it's like I'm flying and the occasional drop stitch.
Yep. I dropped a stitch on one of the last Stop the Steal hats I made. I dropped a stitch and it went all the way down to like one of the other color stripes. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. How did I not? I mean, it's color work. How did I not notice that it had been messed up for that long? I
Right.
never understand that when it happens.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Too focused on other things.
Yeah, probably too busy ignoring the news.
Uh,
So,
Anyways, you have some lovely yarny things before we get to the news.
I have yarn. I have yarn. And so fun story. I ended up in Hobby Lobby this week.
Oh
And
no, how did you get there?
Well, I drove there on purpose because I wanted to be there.
Right.
But I was the weirdo in the yarn aisle. I was Zooming my mom because I'm like, Mom, look at all these hand-dyed yarns they have in stock. Because every time we've gone, the hand-dyed selection has been out of stock.
Mhm.
So I was Zooming her and like holding my phone up and going slowly across the rows, like, do you like any of these? Which one do you want me to bring home for you?
Mhm.
And so regular people that watch us will be amused by this. I came home with 2 skeins. They're very pretty, right? Gorgeous. I'm going to actually use them together in a pattern.
Okay.
But the thing that you guys are going to find amusing about it is guess what weight they are?
What?
They're fingering. I broke down and bought them because they were so pretty.
It.
And actually, though, I've already planned ahead.
Out of my sight.
I'm gonna totally cake them up and use 2 ends at a time. Like it's not gonna be a fingering weight project when it's done.
Right.
But I did buy them because pretty. Hello,
Right.
so pretty. Hobby Lobby wanted to try it, so got plans for that.
And actually, look, that's the kind of week it's been. You buy fingering weights, I start crocheting. What's happening to us?
Yeah, something is severely wrong here. You're right. But I've got a plan for a pattern. And actually, I think it's going to tie in with this other yarn I have okay, so this is totally tubular from Chicken Lady. A while ago, she gave us a skein of this to give away. Super fun. She gave me a skein of it when I did my Warrior Knit Along, I think in the summer. And so it was fingering weight. So I was totally unimpressed with it and did not want to keep it. I mean, I was impressed with her yarn, just not the fingering weight of it. So I had no desire to steal it. But she did it on worsted weight for me. And it's just like so pretty.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the idea I had in my head, I said I want a really dark purple to go with it. So she dyed me this absolutely gorgeous dark purple. It's called Deep Iris.
Mm-hmm.
Like so pretty. But while she was getting there, because she didn't have any purples in stock, so she ended up dyeing this purple also. See how pretty that one is? It's lighter, it's a little more tonal.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're on Instagram talking and she's like, well, what color do you want? And I'm like, you're with the yarn. Mm-hmm. On my phone, everything looked a little bit blue. So I was having trouble like deciding what I liked best.
Right.
And so I said, since you're there with it, you pick it out, mail it to me, whatever. I'll trust your instinct.
Right.
And so I got my mail 2 days ago and I opened it up and there's a note inside that said, I couldn't decide either. So I ended up with 3 skeins. The original plan I had was a 2 skein project, but I think now I'm going to do a 2 skein option and a 2 color option and a 3 color option. Okay. So I'm going to make it work for what I've got going on, but this is what I'm going to actually hopefully start working on soon. I still have a few more hats. I've got, I think, 2 more of these hats to do, 2 more raised right. And that's pretty much the end of it so far. But I'm just really excited to get, I'm excited about the color. Mm-hmm. Like I bought these neon ones before I got the Chicken Lady yarn. And now that I have these pinks and purples, I'm like dying. And it's really funny because I've never been, like I like color, but if you look at me, this is more my tone. I've always loved camo. I've kind of got the drab thing going on. And then I have a bench full of neon yarn next to me. So right. I don't know if the tide is turning.
You're like, I need to use all the rainbows I can.
Well, I don't know if it's like the depressing factor of this week that I just need some life in my yarn or if it's, I'm not sure. But right. So those are the things. I have a colorwork pattern that's going to be coming out hopefully in a week or 2. That's going to be words. And then this project is going to be for next month. It's going to be for February. And hopefully Chicken Lady will have some kits available if you choose to go that route because I mean, dude, her yarn, I just want to hold it. Like if I could take it to bed with me and like snuggle it and that wasn't weird, I would probably go for it, but I know
If
that's
you
weird, so
have
I'm
any
not gonna.
left over, you should make yourself a little bear.
One of those little I'll crochet one of those snuggle blankets that's got a head on it and then it's like
Oh
a
yeah.
granny square like security blanket kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because that's not weird at all.
It should be a chicken head because,
But I don't know. My colors aren't conducive to chicken heads. We'll have to see what happens.
that's true.
So,
Figure it out.
but anyway, yeah. So we finally gotten through. Like I said, there's a couple lingering hat orders, but we have finally gotten through. Everything is fabulous. Thank you, everybody who ordered. Like, appreciate it so much. And I'm really, really happy that we can move on to something else because I love my red, white, and blue stuff, and I'm glad you guys supported it. But I just want to make something that's a different color now.
Right.
So
Something.
that,
Anything.
yeah, but that's my knitting news. I don't have any actual knitting. I've got a raised right hat in my yarn bag somewhere in my project bag that's waiting to be done.
Yeah.
So
I'm the whole time you're sitting there with your Trump censored hat. And I remember, I think I said before, the first time that, before we were even friends, I was just following you on Instagram and I saw that pattern. I'm like, such good design. And now I'm sitting there like, I know that it's been a thing for a while, but maybe I really do need to knit one of those.
I know. Yeah, they got really popular again, and I think it's because of I made it when I was ticked off at Ravelry. Like that's why I made it, not because I had any foresight that it was going to truly happen. And
Right.
here we are.
Oh man, it's really terrible. I mean, beyond the fact that the POTUS Twitter account is now back now that Biden's in. And I saw somebody like gloating that isn't it wonderful that I blocked the POTUS account 4 years ago and now I get to unblock it. I'm like, that doesn't make you a good person. Well, of course, I'm also not a person who thinks that, because you don't like someone, you need to block them. And especially if it's somebody so unconnected with you, just like let them be out there in the universe doing their thing.
Like what's it got to do with you? It's not like you're
Right.
going to see it.
Right. If they're not
you don't go looking for it.
Right. If they're not like actively tagging you or harassing you or whatever, then why block them? It's pointless.
Yeah, no, it doesn't make that stuff doesn't make any sense to me. And my very first reaction when you said that was to kind of be like, ugh. But I'm really trying to get myself into the mindset of I don't like what happened, but he's the president. What the Democrats did was useless, right? I don't think that we're actually going to be able to make any change, but the 4 years of them impeaching and blah, 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 I don't think that's the way to go about it. I think that we need to use history to learn from what happened and change our reaction to it. Does that make sense?
It does.
So my point with that.
Your point is that.
Because I know it sounds a little convoluted, but I don't like how things are going. So we need to start at the bottom and work our way back up. I don't like how things are in my state. I don't like how things are. So I'm hoping that we can take our history and instead of just being pissed off for 4 years or 8 years or, the next 100 years while they are in control, that we try to do something to make a change. But
right. No, I would totally agree with that. But I'm, the crazed radical that I am. I believe in stuff like facts. Not that you don't, obviously, but like, oh, well, he is our president. He has been sworn in as president. And for all of the Trump is illegitimate, this or that, Biden is genuinely illegitimate. And
that is true.
Part of Trump, Trump was pushing things as far as he could at the top. But like you said, we need people on every single level to be standing for what's right. And like I go off on my elective representatives, like, oh, well, their leadership, their authority, you should respect them for having the job. All right. It's like, oh, you shouldn't be rude to people. That's the Christian thing to do. In the Bible, it talks a lot about justice and judgment and just weights and rulings and the importance of not weighting your results of a judgment because someone is rich or because they're poor or because they have any background of what happened. And therefore, there was a reply from our state senator saying, well, we couldn't have done anything with the electoral vote because after all, it's a state's thing. It's like, well, it could have been sent back to the states. It could have been reviewed. It could have been investigated. There were a lot of voter fraud things that were not thoroughly looked into by judges at all. Oh, well, the judges didn't do this, judges didn't do that. The judgment never happened. It was just a brush off thing. That, right. And then you need people who are seeking what happened, what is the evidence, what is the truth, again, all the way through. It can't just, I'm trying to get to that there's.
No, I totally get what you're saying. And when I say that I think that we should try to respect him as president, I don't mean that I think that he was legitimately elected. I don't mean that I don't think he should be investigated for the Biden stuff. But I also feel like there are major issues. It's not just the president that's the issue. It's the voter fraud, and it's the state level, and it's the fact that like governors and secretary of states or whatever weren't doing their jobs properly. So yes, I'm not saying, I just don't want to go around the next 4 years like the Democrats did while Trump was in office.
Right.
Not my president. I hate him. He's so terrible. I can feel all those things inside, but instead of just bitching about it, I think that we need to actually mobilize as a group and try to actually make the changes.
Right.
Because it's over now. I don't know why Trump didn't appoint somebody to investigate what happened with the election. Like, that blows my mind. I almost feel mad at him, honestly, because now he's left us. Now my dad, who has voted forever, taught me about the importance of voting and saying to me, I don't think I'm going to vote. And I know a ton of people feel that way. And so I don't know. I just.
Right. And that's something I've talked to people about too. Like, well, I don't think I'll vote again. Well, first of all, we should, again, local level, get involved, make sure things are done well. But also it's the possibility of something going right versus the certainty of something going wrong if you don't vote. Like the non-vote does nothing, and the positive and going out and voting may do something. You should at least have the chance of it doing something. Even, again, you should, go for a better system and everything. But you sitting home doesn't forward anything.
Right. And I think there's so many things that went wrong, and I don't think that. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. Like, everybody's talking about the Patriot Party, and I think that that's a bad idea. As much as I really hate like the Republicans that are like old school. If we break up the vote, it's just going to make them win more. So I don't know about that either.
While, I mean, that is the perpetual problem with third party. But I think there are a lot of Republicans, and again, my elected officials at the top of the list, where it's all very, well, we screwed you, but we know that you're still going to vote R in November because you always do. And
there's no other choice.
Right. You don't have any choice. And I think it would really surprise people how many people picked up and moved if a new party was started from whole cloth.
There's that. And I know the president was talking about supporting it. And
Right.
if he were to support it, I mean, I
Mhm.
think a lot of the people that supported him would follow. But would it be enough? Especially
Right.
with their cheating and lying.
Right.
So,
Cheating and lying is chief of the problems. And also, this is a little bit off, but I'm not for calling it the Patriot Party.
no?
I like MAGA Party. You already have your slogan and your message all in one. Makes sense. Patriot Party already starts with a, if you're not with us, you're against us, which, you kind of are, but it's not, it's kind of a
Yeah.
non-positive. Starts with almost a virtue signal, and I'm not into that. But I mean, whatever is called, if Trump heads it, it will go, I think. That is what I think.
Yeah, but there's enough Republicans, I think, that fed into the mainstream media that it could hurt him, even if he follows,
Hmm.
even if the people follow him. I don't know. I don't.
Well, and
It's
our
one of those things I don't know the answer to.
right, well, and like I said about voting, the possibility of something going right versus the certainty of it going wrong. That is what it is to vote for a Republican candidate and has been for how many years. And Trump really mixed that up. That it's sometimes he folds like a cheap suit, but he's my guy that I vote for because the other guy, will only hopefully go a bit to the left and sort of just like bolting off that cliff. So, I mean, since I know it will be worse with the other guy, I'll vote for this guy who's only kind of for my side, but not really. That sucks. And we are not into that. And, to again vote for candidates who actually want to push forward great things. And did you watch Trump's farewell speech?
I did.
Is so good.
Hmm.
And that he emphasized throughout it that it is that the point of government is to serve its people, that the people vote and that you do what they want. And he is the perpetual, that I am doing this because I want you to prosper and I want you to be safe and I want you to be free. And that his focus is on the people and not on own personal agendas.
Right. Man, I saw him leave yesterday. I watched his address on repeat because I didn't realize it was happening at 9 o'clock in the morning. I was doing school with my kids.
Right.
So I happened to talk to my mother and she's like, "Did you watch it?" And I'm like, "No." So I turned on the TV and I caught the end of him like flying away. And I swear my heart just, it's just sad.
Right.
That dude did everything for us. And here we are.
Yep. And
Oh,
it's
well.
like, oh, well, he didn't totally drain the swamp. It's a big swamp, you know? And it's like, well, he could have done more. Yes, everyone could have done more, but nobody has done as much.
Right. And he didn't drain the swamp. I think he brought a lot of stuff to light, but I just feel sad that nothing came of, I mean, the videos of cheating and stuff. I just don't understand. How how are we living in a country that that's okay? That's
Yeah.
the part that gets to me, and that's why I had held out hope that something would happen, honestly, because I just figured that enough people would see that and say that's not what we are.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, the other side wants to win at whatever cost. And so if that's being a big fat cheater, then whatever.
Right. And then how easy it is to brush aside, oh, well, you're just a conspiracy theorist or you're this or that. It's flipping video. Like,
I know it's on video. There's so many eyewitness accounts. There's some, I think I mentioned it a couple weeks ago, the guy who's a paper expert who said that he could verify whether ballots were real or false in a matter of minutes.
mhm,
He said, like, in 2 hours, he could go through 500,000 ballots. Like,
right.
they could have had the whole thing audited in the 10 days if somebody had given him the opportunity. And that's the part that I just don't understand.
Right.
And I don't mean to be a downer. I'm just saying that
And there's a lot of
how can you
people,
let that go?
right? There's a lot of people who seem to be picking up and, oh, well, voter fraud, whatever. I'm like, no, 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 no. This is the most important part that needs to be addressed. And again,
no,
it
whatever.
can be addressed on the local level, which is because it was stolen at the local level.
Right. And these counties that he won in, those people in those counties need to make a fuss.
Mm-hmm.
They need to hold their election people accountable. And I'm saying this, and I live in New York, and I'm sure that in my county, well, maybe not my county, I live in a conservative county, but my point is that I'm sure that there's crap going on here too. Or maybe we still have enough Democrats they don't need to. Although from what I understand, they all left New York, so it's hard to say. But but yeah, you know, everybody needs to hold their people accountable, but especially in the areas where there was the questions, it just needs to be brought out to light and not stood for. I don't know, Ann.
I know. And all that in the midst of questions from our dearly devoted media about Kamala Harris's shoe choice. Oh, she wears Converse. She's so quirky and relatable like the rest of us. She too is a Tumblr girl. They actually said that, but you know. But it reminds me of Juan Perón standing on the balcony, you know, with all the starving people, but he took his jacket off like he's one of the workers. Oh, and what ice cream flavors do you like? And she's such a great role model for young girls. And I'm like, I think I threw up a little bit.
Dude, if I had girls that were doing what she has done to get where she is, not sure I would be very proud of that. Just saying.
It's not good.
But hey. And then that's the other thing
everyone is so proud of the racial background she doesn't have. And it's just like, that's just, I don't understand.
More than anything, what I keep coming back to is that it is just obvious how far our country has gone from God. And you want to answer all the questions? There you have it. Let's go back to church, boys and girls.
Right. And that is one of the things, when, that's an incredibly important thing. Like when you look at the foundation of our country, how much of it was a Christian and a moral foundation, that is what, gives, countries who are not moral are not strong. You need moral strength in order to stand up for truth and to stand up for justice, really. If your judge is going to flake out, then what's the point if you bring stuff before a court? But yeah, that so much of our founding said that if the people are not moral, this will not work.
Right. And it's just obvious now.
Right. And even
we've allowed it to seep in everywhere.
Right. And even in listening and reading through Trump's speech, and I don't want to knock Trump for this, but what did he do? It was economic freedom, which is incredibly important. It's an undervalued freedom where to do less taxes, to do less regulations, to free people up in order to do what they want to do, to reach a further potential. And that is incredibly important. But you're in a political realm and you think politically, but it is not the total end. That there is still a deep and important part of American life, which is the spiritual element, which is the principled element that cannot be ignored. And that is not necessarily something you want the government to push or a government figure to push. And even though, people say separation of church and state, it's like we have had very many, very strong Christians in our nation's history that were also in government, and that does not, you can't cut that apart.
You might separate government and religion, but having a morally strong person lead is not a bad thing.
Right. That the quote separation of church and state, that is a line to prevent the state interfering in the church and not the church doing whatever it wants with the members of the state. Or I guess not, it doesn't mean that the church oughtn't to have influence on the members of the state. I guess to word that better. That, the American Revolution, how much of that was from the pulpit? And now we're like, oh, well, pastors shouldn't say anything. Well, if pastors have a moral principle, and that was, again, part of the leaving of England, is that England wouldn't let the colonists send missionaries out, and they wouldn't, let this or that. Anyways, so yeah, we should all sit down with some good American Revolution history.
Yeah, right. And part of what I was thinking of is the moral standards that have gone so far by the wayside.
Yes.
But I just have trouble with the choice for the Secretary of State. No, sorry, the Secretary of Health.
Oh, yes.
Who happens to be transgender. And I know that people choose to live their lives the way they choose to. And that's fine for that person. But I don't understand how the Secretary of Health can be having that kind of a crisis and be in charge of stuff.
Well, not to mention that I believe it's Rachel is his name. I don't remember last name. I'm sorry. But just the horrible job done in Pennsylvania by that health secretary. Like, woohoo. And by the way, let me put sick people in nursing homes after I pull my own mother out.
Yes. Like what is that?
Be like, yeah, you already did a really bad job, but please continue. But yes, also the person behind health alerts on your phone. The phone alerts that you're supposed to have if there's a tornado or if there's a missing child. But no, you get several alerts a day to wash your hands. I'm so glad. Well, for a certain time period, yeah, that there was, especially around Thanksgiving. And yeah, nanny state.
Well, it's when it's going to be. So part of the rabbit hole that I had fallen into for a while was about the president using the emergency broadcasting system to contact the people, right? Had you heard that one, Ann? Pay attention, keep your alerts on, keep your radio going. Either Monday or Tuesday, I got an alert on my phone at 12:30, and I'm sleeping. And I wake up and the first thing my brain thinks is, Mr. President, is that you? Are you talking to me?
Which proves that you don't get the send money now to sendmoneynow.com president's text messages, or you 8 times a day before the election. Like, Mr. President.
No, I didn't get those. It was actually Amber Alert thing.
Oh yeah.
Just because I had been reading so much stuff about how he was gonna contact us with the emergency alert system and stuff. And so, I'm sleeping and your phone makes that noise that everybody knows, that awful beep noise or siren or whatever it is. And that was the first thing I thought. I was like, Mr. President?
You're like, the bat signal. Let's go.
What do you need me to do? I'll get out of bed.
Yeah. I'm here for you. Oh, wait. Oh. It's something. All these cries for unity and also kill all the racists.
Yeah.
Well, and
we'll unify.
Right. And that is also something I kind of want to talk about, because the ever charming AOC is talking, and you know how great she is. But it was a clip that was played on Tucker, and as she sits there brightly with her concrete gray background, to tell you about the new fun things that are going to happen to you. But it was talking about how she said that Trump stopped funding for rehabilitation studies for white supremacists. And I'm like, what? And it's like, is that what you say the critical race theory stuff is? Is that, are you saying that out loud? Is that an inside voice, outside voice? And that she said that there should be more funding. In fact, 3 times, quadruple the funding. Like, she got excited, and I'm like, ooh, what? It's like,
what is
wow.
going on?
Well, I mean, first of all, there's nothing like money for racism. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we could like get together all of the books that show that would be against the idea that one group of people are no better than another group of people for the intrinsic value of their skin color, and then we could get rid of them. But we should also have like this fun little like hand signal so you know who the good guys are. That would be nice.
She is
Well,
ridiculous. I can't even.
well, and another thing is, okay, so if, no, another thing is that, people talk about being against the death penalty. Okay, so whatever you think about the death penalty, but the death penalty is you murder somebody and therefore in the society you forfeit your right to life. Okay, very clear cut. You murder someone, you're dead now. And to a certain extent, that is the state has a control over your life. Or the state, you may say, has a certain amount of levy on your income through taxes, through property, whatever, and many libertarian arguments for if the state does have that power. But all of that down the line. Here's the thing, though, about the sort of re-education and the whatever. That is saying that, okay, if you kill someone and then you are executed for murder, then that is, again, your life in society that the society says it has a claim on. But the society does not have a claim on your soul, that it doesn't have a claim on what your thoughts and your opinions or any of that is, or if you're even sorry for,
Right.
that is not a thing. That, I mean, this, if you went to prison or if they sent a priest to you before you were executed, again, they can send a help to that. Or if you're in prison, they could, they have a right then to your time and maybe to a certain extent your labor if you are in prison. But again, and they can have prisoner rehabilitation programs. But when you serve your time, you're done. Okay. Part of the re-education is you cannot leave unless you think rightly. That you're not a possessor of your own thoughts and opinions. You must be correct with us, or you're right, that you have that sort of like your physical life, your potential time, your work, your body, to a certain extent, for certain reasons, the state may have control of. But this new statism is saying that it has a right over your thoughts, your words, your feelings to a certain extent. Because what happens this past summer, but you weren't down for the struggle enough. Oh, well, you posted this, but you didn't post this, or the next thing, or the next thing.
Well,
That you have to, sorry, but the idea that your mind, your heart, your soul is your own, and that is not a state right as much as they may try to push it. Okay, that is a God-given right. That is an individual right. That is a free choice right. You have free will.
right. But when you
Don't
take
be
away
imposed upon.
God and sovereignty and personal accountability, you lose all of that. And that's the
Right.
problem. And it goes, I mean, it's the same thing on a smaller scale, like with the Ravelry thing.
Mhm.
They got rid of all of us Trump supporters, but then they had people that they didn't like. The Thin Blue Line people got
Mhm.
kicked off next, even though they maybe agreed with the Ravelry ban. And then they had the accessibility issue, and then you got all the people who are migrating away because of the new design, and it's like a microcosm of what's happening now. Like you can see it. Like, okay, so you're going to re-educate Trump supporters. Well, then what? Who else are you going to go after? You're going to go after the people who support the military or the police who maybe didn't support Trump, or are you going to go? I mean, like in theory, it's a great plan, right? Like get everybody on your side, get them agreeing with what you think. But after a while, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and then it's all into that group think. And now we're in 1984.
Right.
So
And I'm trying to remember the line from 1984 when it talks about that, when we're all individuals who are different, that we can be together and understand the difference. But when we are forced to be in one box, we all sit in that box alone. That if you are so afraid of micro offending, then you can't easily converse and be in any way actually unified than other in that, besides the fact that you say the same thing as the guy next to you. Look, I really don't know what the whole inauguration thing was about. It was a stupid amount of troops for no particular reason. And
I know.
I was afraid that something was going to happen and Trump supporters were going to be blamed. That was my thing.
Yeah, I was concerned about that too, but come to find out, all the Trump supporters, or the majority of them, listened to the warnings that there were no planned protests or anything, and nothing happened. So they just managed to make the inauguration look like we were in communist Russia. But whatever.
Right. And the news outlets, Katie Hopkins was around and she was taking video of how all of the news reports got the most militarized shot possible of anything that happened. And there was also an interesting interaction between her and an Al Jazeera reporter who they were like shoving her to get her out of their shot. The film wasn't even rolling then. And like, oh, that's incredibly rude. But also, when you go low, I go high, you're a racist, leave, was the phrase stated by the reporter. I'm like, what? Which it just kind of encapsulates the whole critical race theory thing. I am better than you. I am more moral, and I'm going to accuse you utterly in order to push you out. Like, that is.
I can't even.
I know.
Some of this stuff I just can't.
But the idea, and I wonder if part of it. Okay, so again, voter fraud. I do believe more Americans voted for Trump than voted for Biden. And if you don't believe that, you can at least say it was mighty close. Okay, so there are enough Americans, and of course, how many of them will be cowed? How many are just straight up depressed because we've been in lockdown for so long? But at the same time, I mean, Rush was saying that he had never seen a defeat galvanize so many people. And also,
Right.
as you can see by that, okay, so everyone's Capitol Hill riot, insurrection, this, insurrection, that. Again, it's like, oh, majority peaceful protests. We aren't the ones burning Portland right now. Okay, and there are so many. Yeah.
Small detail, Anne. Nobody cares about that because it's not us. Doesn't matter. Move on.
Oh, well,
sorry.
My mistake. I'll move along then.
But that's how it is. That's the thing. Well, it's not the bad GOP, so who cares?
Well, yeah. Well, Trump supporters, I would say, know how to handle themselves. That they're not racist and they know how to behave themselves in the main, justly and in a measured, sensible way. And it was even something that I disagreed with Nigel Farage about. That he was, I know. Well, he was talking about how, he supports Trump and he had supported Trump and everything else. And that he said that in getting rid of Trump, that he was afraid of what would come after Trump, that there would be someone else who is actually horrible and vicious, and that a bunch of Americans would be swept under that. And while, I mean, that there's a concern there's a potential that, all that disenfranchised people will go to the fringe. We've seen it. It's not impossible. But the majority of Americans, I think, would see any sort of actually radical, horrible group for what it is.
Right. We would hope so.
Right. And also, look at how peaceful the Trump rallies have been, how many they were, again, well managed.
How many people were there? Yeah.
Everyday people who actually have a stake in this country and want it to succeed and want it to do well.
Right. And I don't remember, something you said earlier made me remember this little tidbit I wanted to share. Mm-hmm. Yesterday, about an hour after his inauguration, the World Health Organization changed how they're going to track COVID cases. Did you hear that?
I did. Oh my goodness, he cured COVID.
already. And so now, instead of just counting a positive COVID case as a positive COVID case, you have to have a positive, you have to get retested, and you have to be symptomatic. So
Wow.
how much do you think that's going to break it down for real?
Oh, seriously. And also, all of the people who have said, like, oh wow, this, that COVID. A lot of people have died from COVID, but it's like, wow, this is an outrageous amount of people. They have now counted the deaths from 2 flu seasons.
Mhm.
Okay, and I mean, we've already had inflated numbers from people who died in motorcycle accidents who are counted under COVID. So again, it's not as if people are not dying from COVID, but the amount of people who are dying from COVID to the amount of people who are dying with COVID is outrageous. And isn't it great that the Democrats are in charge now and now we've cured it? Except for
Already better.
we're already so much. Wow, this is incredible.
Gosh.
The sun is shining and there is a Democrat in office, even though he's still looking a little scared behind his mask.
Oh, before you continue on, why was he sitting? He did 17 executive orders yesterday. He sat behind the desk with his mask on. What was that about? Number one. And number two, is it really Biden? Is there a reason he doesn't take his mask off? I'm just curious.
I have no idea. Well, I think it is actually Biden, though it is funny to speculate. But
Well, I saw Hillary yesterday and I thought, is that really Hillary? Because it kind of doesn't look like her. Like, what's going on, people?
it's so hard to tell.
Maybe she just gained weight in the face and that's why it seemed that way.
No, that's not unlikely.
I don't know. The whole Biden unity thing and then let's throw them into re-education. Like, that just, I
Yeah.
don't think that they get it. These words don't mean what you think they mean.
See, it reminds me of one of my favorite lines from Flight of the Conchords: when all of the elephants are dead, there will be no more unethical treatments of elephants.
That's pretty accurate. I mean, for real. Something just came up on my screen. It says, it's a report from the Blaze that says Biden doesn't wear a mask at the Lincoln Memorial hours after mandating masks be worn at all federal properties. Like, the stupidity, it just gets to me.
Right.
How are we gonna, what? It's
I
not
know.
that hard.
100 days of masks and all sorts of fun lung funk that comes from that. But he will have cured it, man. But you'll still need
Well,
to
he's gonna cure it, you'll see.
Oh, yeah.
How will they trace us if they don't vaccinate us?
Exactly. Seriously. Oh, and I got it's a lady who lives in Sweden, and she's an American citizen, and she got a message from the consulate, and the consulate said that you're going to need a doctor's note that you either got COVID and recovered or got the vaccine in order to fly into America. And by the way, if you don't live in a country that has decent vaccine or has decent testing, you should come home now. So that's super fun and also much different from, again, the Trump administration, who was trying desperately to get everybody home and to get everybody on the planes to come home at the beginning of COVID, if you'll remember.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I want to be, I don't think optimistic is the right word, but I don't want to be a doom and gloomer, but I just really don't know.
Yeah, and that is, well, to return to Trump's speech, he said that the most important thing was to not lose our faith in America or our faith in American values, which I think is an important thing to remember, that he ended optimistically and that, okay, it all sucks, obvious. But I mean, and it's not as if, I don't, like, oh man, this all sucks. We're all dead. But you absolutely cannot stay there. It's not positive. It doesn't, again, anything that doesn't spur you to positive action, throw it out. Okay, even if that positive action is not even rest can be a positive action. But to work towards a good direction, that you can't just quit. You can't throw it all to the side. To do whatever good thing is in your power to do ought to be your goal. So
that's good advice. And
that's my moralizing for today.
I think that their goal is going to be to take away a lot of rights, but we should know what they are. I think that a lot of people depend on government to tell them.
Right.
Like, this is what we can do, and this is what you should just know on your own. Don't rely on anybody else to tell you.
Right.
It's kind of like having faith. Don't rely on a pastor or a church to tell you. You should know. You should know what the Bible says. You should know where you stand. It's, don't leave it up to somebody else.
Right.
That's what I got.
Yep. While finding a good church or good leaders is a good thing, that you should be able to have discernment in yourself. If someone says something that you can be like, actually, not so much.
Right. And yeah, I don't know. The president was optimistic. He said he'll be back, so I can't wait to see what happens.
Right. And I don't know. I said with the RNC, which was still, I know I'm a little boring, but the RNC was still some of the best television. Still all over that.
A little boring.
I am. I'm sorry. But after the RNC, that I was singing the song "It's a Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow," and I still, Trump still ended with "The best is yet to come," and just the vision of what America could be at its best state and working towards that vision. And I still think it's incredibly important. And also the contrast between the two visions of America, that the American people are worthy of trust and worthy to work for and worthy of getting the best for them in order for them to be better, and be better by being better equipped, versus America is a horrible and racist place full of people who the government needs to tell what to think, because left to their own devices, they're evil. So the optimism is so wonderfully important. And I mean, again, with Biden as president, as I even hate to say it, that there's optimism in short supply, and the contrast. And again, the optimism that comes from faith is the most solid and grounded there is, and don't discount that.
Yep. And you know what? This country might go to hell in a handbasket. But for most of us that watch this, I mean, I know not everybody is on the same faith as Ann and I are, but this is just a stop on the way. And so it's all part of a bigger plan than us. And I have to believe that, because otherwise I think that I would still be in my bed today, and probably yesterday too. So, there's plan. We don't know all of it. We don't know what's in store. And so we have to just do our best.
Yep.
And I feel hideously depressed, so I'm going to go now.
Well,
I'm kidding.
All right then. Limerick contest. That's still a
Limerick
thing.
contest. Yeah, Ann and I are going to go live maybe Friday night? Saturday morning? I got to be somewhere Saturday morning, so I don't know.
Okay.
Saturday afternoon?
Friday afterwards. Might be a little late, but yeah.
Maybe we'll go live on, I'll figure it out.
Yeah. Surprise live event.
Something just fell down in the corner. I have to clean my room. It's a disaster.
There's a lot of that going around lately.
So Ann and I are going to do the Limerick contest separately. Yep. We did not forget. It'll be cool. So, guys, thanks for joining us. And, you know, things are going to be rough for a while, but we'll be here. There are others. So keep on keeping on.
Hopefully have a couple of guests in upcoming episodes. So that'll be good.
Yeah. You won't just have to listen to us.
Well, it's such a problem, with everything going on politically. It's like, oh, we should talk about that. That'd be great. And that we don't want to forget guests because of that.
Yeah. It's just been so much going on lately. It's kind of fallen off the radar, but Anne's right. We're going to have guests soon, hopefully. So join us. We will continue on. You can find us here. You can find us on Rumble. If for any reason you can't find us on our regular places, check out Gab, MeWe. I heard Parler is coming back by the end of the month.
Hopefully.
Vero, Telegram, Ann Pinkova, Deplorable Knitter. If you search for us, you can probably find us.
Right.
So
we're not everywhere yet, but
we're working on it. So
right.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you again next week.
All right. See you guys soon.
All right.